Hola a todos, bienvenidos, ¿cómo están? Estoy en una nueva entrevista en este canal. Ahora voy a tener a Azul Garcia Griego, el ganador de Stockholm, el último regional de Pokémon que ha habido, con el deck de control. Hi Azul, how are you?
I'm doing good.
First of all, congratulations on the win, dude. Awesome win.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
So let's go to the point quickly. What was the decision made for this deck for this tournament?
Um, Really just definitely looking to play a deck that I feel like if you're not going to play Charizard, you definitely want to be playing a deck that is favorite to Charizard. So that's part of it, of course. And then on top of that, the other, I guess, like big deck in the format besides that is definitely the Chien Pao. And the Quad Snorlax stall deck has a favorable matchup not only against the Charizard deck but also against the Chien Pao deck. And then it gets a little bit iffy from there, but me and my group, we expected, a majority or decent chunk of the meta to be those decks. And there's definitely quite a few other decks that you're okay against, even if your other matchups can be a little bit iffy.
Okay, so I think one of the decks that might be a little hard for you, it's Giratina, right?
The Lost Tina? Yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, so how was the preparation you have for this tournament?
So me and my group have like our normal process that we go through to kind of give ourselves like a starting point in the meta to work off of. And then from there, we take that information and kind of decide what we want to do with it for the most part. And Snorlax Control was definitely like one of the front runners for us to pick from. The Quadlax deck was one of the front runners for us to pick from. So we just kind of had to make sure that all the matchups kind of went how we thought they did. And there was nothing that seemed to be too big of a surprise or too big of a shock or anything like that. Everything seemed like it should work out the way we wanted it to. And the end result from the tournament definitely showcased that as well.
Yes, awesome. And how was the tournament? It's your first tournament that you play in Europe, I think?
Yeah, for regionals. I've been to UIC. So first regional over in Stockholm in Europe. It was great. I mean, the tournament ran super well. My games overall, I only lost one match to a Lost Box that actually played the Spiritomb, which is a pretty good counter to the Quadlax. I don't know if they were specifically playing it to counter Quadlax, but Spiritomb's good against Quadlax, Control, Charizard, so it's just kind of a decent card in general. So that's the only matchup I lost to. And then everything else besides that went pretty smoothly. Played against a couple Chien Paos, a lot of Charizards, and then all my ties were to some closer matchups. I tied a Arceus Armarouge and a Lost Tina, and I forget what the third deck I tied is, but yeah, I did hit a couple rough matchups and was able to squeak out some ties against them, which is definitely a big deal for me to be able to pull out those ties.
Yeah, how was the top eight? You went to top eight with just one loss, and how many ties?
I went to top eight with one loss, 3 ties. So then I had what? 'Cause we only played, so I had 10 wins. 10 wins, 1 loss, 3 ties. Yeah.
One loss, 3 ties, and to top eight. And the first opponent that you had in top eight was
I played against in top 8. I played against Yuho.
Yes, Yuho. And how do you feel about that matchup for? It was future hands, not future box.
Yeah, future hands. Yeah, so generally I think that matchup is unfavorable with the kind of the go-to list. The go-to list generally play like 2 Psychic Energy, and then they also generally have that switch card in there, but Yuho wasn't playing any of those cards, which is a pretty big deal for me, because otherwise it comes up being a little bit tough. But yeah, because he didn't have any of those cards, it was pretty manageable. Only had 1 Psychic Energy, and then didn't have that switch card, or even sometimes people have multiple switch cards. So none of the switch cards or anything like that. So it was pretty manageable, to be honest. Yeah, it ended up being I think it's probably pretty close to slightly favored against Yuho's list specifically. As soon as they have like that extra switch card or the Psychic Energy, that's where things can get pretty tough. In the 2 matches I played against him, I did catch his Prime Catcher with Eerie before he got to use it. So that's also a big deal. So the 1 switch card he had, I was able to get rid of before he was able to utilize it.
I think it was your five no your helmet misfortunes, five misfortune sister 2 times in this tournament, right?
Yeah, one was in top 4 against John Egg, and the other one was in the finals.
Yeah. And so in top 4, John Eng with it wasn't Hiratin, it was Chen Pao, right?
Yeah, Chien Pao, yeah.
Chen Pao. And that matchup is like just to trap I don't know, Bibarel or maybe another support Pokemon.
Yeah, you can trap the Greninja as well because it doesn't output enough damage to like keep up with the pennies and like the Defiance vests. But yeah, if you ideally you just want to trap a B-Barrel and then the game basically is over. So the way they have to approach the matchup is they have to not bench any they have to not bench any B-Barrels or anything like that. So they have no draw power. So with that, you know, if they only have Chien Pao and Baxcalibur in play, you can hit them with an Eerie. One, they might just kind of start off really, really slow. And then you can even just like hit them with an Eerie, and then the Eerie can kind of give you the intel you need to kind of make your plays from there. The Mimikyu can be a big deal in that matchup in the early game to kind of slow them down, force them to have to get out of Baxcalibur, to like get into a Baxcalibur to actually KO it if they can't find their Canceling Cologne, but the Canceling Cologne is a thing that they play as well. So that's like something that can come up. But yeah, generally pretty good matchup because they don't take knockouts that aggressively when they don't have the draw power of B-Barrel, basically. So without the draw power of B-Barrel to help supplement their, their resources, they have like really slow turns or like a really slow initial setup. So it gives you a ton of time to eventually get that KO. Or not get the KO, get the Erica's Invitation off to find the B-Barrel, or set up for the Mantine play because they might have to just like discard so you can't actually catch it. They're going to discard it with Ultra Ball or Superior, the Bidoofs, and then you can go use the Mantine and catch it with Mantine instead. So that's how you can kind of get access to it. And then once you trap that in the active, the game basically ends because they're doing 40 damage. They do have a Prime Catcher to get out of it and the Silene, but I did play the Sandshrew. Me and my group brought the Sandshrew to this tournament, which is a really big deal for that matchup because it prevents the Silene from recovering Prime Catcher or potentially, I guess, Canceling Clone or even like Superiors. Because like another way you can beat them is you can just run them out of energy recovery, right? They need to commit, 3 energy to 4 energy to KO each Snorlax if it has a tool card. And then if you just catch enough Superiors and Super Rods, they just can't attack with Chien Pao anymore. So you can also beat them that way.
Yes, of course. And the final, it was like supposed to be more favorable for your opponent. He was very confident in the interview. He was very, very confident in the interview that things work out on your favor at the end. And how do you feel about that matchup and how it went for you? Because we watched the matchup. I mean, It's here the matchup, but it's different to know the perspective of what you lived through the matchup.
Yeah, it's definitely a close matchup. He didn't have the Spiritomb, which is like the big card in the matchup. If you have Spiritomb, it's very one-sided for them, but didn't have the Spiritomb. And had a slow start both games. So didn't have a very aggressive start, really didn't pressure me to find a bunch of resources and set up initially. Like both of my starts were not like super fast, or I didn't get like one of the things they can do is if they get early KOs, they really put pressure on you to find more Snorlaxes. But because his starts were pretty slow, I could kind of take my time and focus more on just finding Eerie as fast as possible, which is what I did. I just tried to find Eerie as fast as I possibly could, and then just use Eerie, and then kind of with that knowledge and control over the hand, make my decisions from there, figure out what I actually wanted to do after I had, taken a look at the hand, remove some resources from it. And also on top of him kind of starting a little bit slow, he opened the Roaring Moon both games, which is like part of that, and really gave me just like a lot of room, a lot of freedom to get into that Eerie play and kind of do whatever I wanted in the early game. And even in game 2, I caught his Prime Catcher before he was able to use it with the Eerie. So that was like a pretty big deal as well.
Also the 5 items.
Yeah. And then at the end of game 1, I think I did hit the Misfortune Sisters for 5 items, which wasn't like super, wasn't a super big deal for where the match currently was at, but it was definitely like a cool play that happened for sure. Definitely a fun play that happened. But yeah, in the situation there, it wasn't like super consequential one way or another, but it was nice to get it. I also got one against John, like the Misfortune Sisters for 5 against John that I got was literally, it was like 2 Buddy Puff and 2 Nest Ball and an Ultra Ball. So like no impactful resources at all. It was just like some whatever cards. And even against Hermione in the finals, the most important card that I hit was the switch card. It was like against Hermione, it was like Poffin, Nest Ball, Super Rod, switch card, Poffin or something. So there was 2 good cards there. The other ones were kind of not super consequential, but
this is your 6th, 7th regional win?
7th regional win, if you're counting my one from way back. My first regional win was was all the way back in 2010. So depending on what we're counting from what eras of the game, 7 regional wins total now.
Wow. So modern era, my 6, but total 7. You're a very versatile person with the decks, because you have played Charizard. You have won with Charizard. You won with Arceus Pikachu. It was Nike, right? NAIC, yeah. Then you have played Control. You have played also Pidgeotto Control. Do you remember that? Yeah. So, do you think that it's like just the knowledge of the game that you have provides you with the different perspective of different decks, or you just practice different decks to find what's best for each tournament?
At this point, a lot of it definitely just is experience, for sure. A lot of it for me is definitely just the experience is definitely what carries me in my current situation. Because I don't do as much try hard practice as I would like. I play a lot of Pokemon, for sure. I definitely play a lot of Pokemon, but there was definitely a ton of room for me to potentially, do more of the try hard practicing with my testing group. Because I don't know, like if I had to put a number on it, like every game of try hard testing with my testing group is equal to like 20 games on PTCG Live, or like some like really, really high number, right? So you can learn a lot more by getting those higher quality reps in, for sure. There's more knowledge to be gained. But yeah, I'd say the biggest difference, or I guess the biggest thing that keeps me able to win these tournaments, is definitely just my years of experience in the game at this point, which I won't have forever over every player in the game, but while I have it, I'm going to try and win as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, and also playing with Caleb, playing with your test team, it's an advantage because they are very good players, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we have like our system and our process that we like to refine and work on over and over, which is, I think, a pretty big deal for keeping us consistent in the game, because even if we don't feel like we came up with some broken deck or something new, some new archetype, we can just fall back on our system and our process to keep us always in it at every major tournament. It feels like we're always in it at pretty much every major tournament, because we can always fall back on our process to help us figure out what we should go with, no matter the format or the meta or anything.
Yeah, so next tournament is going to be Los Angeles Regionals.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then NAIC. But Los Angeles Regionals is going to be in 1 week.
Yep, it's coming up fast.
It's 1 week. I'm going to be there judging. You're going to be there playing. And what do you feel about the tournament? You already play testing. I don't want to spoil your deck. I don't want you to spoil your deck, obviously. But how do you feel about that tournament?
We're nearing like the end of the format, and I actually feel like this format. So I think a lot of people, including myself and in my group in general, for a little bit, we're checked out a little bit of this format. We're already looking ahead towards the next format and NAIC, but I actually feel like there's a lot more for this format to have developed. I think the biggest deck that is going to probably remain a little bit underdeveloped in the format will be Lost Box. I think Lost Box is really, really solid right now. We're seeing a lot of people have a lot of success with a bunch of different builds. 3 of them were in top 8 at Stockholm. I think Lost Box will have a pretty successful tournament in Los Angeles, and I think it could become like maybe even rivaling Charizard in the format if we had more time for the format to develop. So this format's being cut a little bit short, and I'm not overly thinking about this format too much, just because NAIC is a bigger tournament, new format coming up. There's more to think about and actually uncover in the new format. So not as invested in this one. But I think a lot of people are kind of on the same page. A lot of people are checked out because we got the new format coming up, and we got a bigger tournament with NAIC coming up.
Yeah, and what are your top 3 or top 5 decks that you think are gonna do well on NAIC with Twilight Masquerade?
We got Dragapult. I think Miraidon is pretty good. From what I've seen, I still am not sold on. I like initially going to this format, I thought Lugia was solid. The more I played it, I don't think Lugia is that good of a deck, but it does get some new buffs with the Twilight Masquerade. So maybe it would become, I would categorize as a good deck moving forward. It doesn't really gain a whole ton of consistency. You get the Carmine, but you get some powerful options with the Legacy energy. So that might be enough to put it over the edge. But I don't want to quite call it a good deck yet. But yeah, Dragapult and Baridon. Also, Gardevoir seems pretty good. It seems like it should have like a pretty bad Dragapult matchup, but the results from Japan say different for sure. So those are probably my top 3 right now to look at.
Raging Bolt.
Raging Bolt's cool, and it might be the best way to play the Ogerpon card. I would be really hype if the deck's good. That'd be hype, but I'm not sold on it yet. I've been a Raging Bolt hater since day one. So far, I've been correct, and I'm definitely down to come around if the Ogerpon does enough for it. But yeah, I'm not sold until I've actually played with the deck, which will be coming up soon, only in a couple days, because yeah, it's live on Wednesday on PTCG Live, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, yes, of course. And well, obviously you are grinding the YouTube and streaming thing, and you said that, for example, testing with your group is 1 game equals to 7 or 9 games, because
yeah,
there's this difference. So what would be some kind of advice that you tell to some players that are watching here right now?
I think trying to find people to just work with and play Pokemon with, maybe not quite probably on the same level as me and my group do in terms of our process, and like always playing the same 60 cards at every tournament and stuff like that. You don't have to copy us, but just finding a group of players who want to improve at the game and you can work with, and are, constructively critical of themselves and others around them, and wanting to not only improve themselves but also push other people to improve. So finding those type of players, I think, is really, really good to help get you just better at the game. And I think the other couple things would just be playing high quality games of Pokemon as opposed to just playing Pokemon. You need to play a lot of Pokemon, but trying to get higher quality games if possible, playing in like online tournaments, or if you are just playing on PTCG Live ladder, removing distractions away from the games you're playing. Make it just you and PTCG Live, maybe some background music, but that's kind of it. And just really focus on trying to play your best you can, even if it's just a PTCG Live ladder game. And then coming up with, if you're someone who's going to be going to quite a few major tournaments throughout a season, coming up with a process. What is going to be your process to figuring out what to play and then improving at the deck that you're playing? Like me and my group have our process that I talk about all the time, but you have me and my group play different decks all the time. We've played, Lost Tina twice, and now we've played Control, and then we played Quadlax. We don't know what we're going to play for LA quite yet, but we play a bunch of different decks. But then you look at someone like Tord, who's basically only played Charizard this whole format, unless I'm misremembering a tournament. And he likes to put a ton of time in with one deck and just kind of be as innovative as possible with it and be that much more ahead of everyone else with that one archetype. So there's a bunch of different ways you can approach it, but just coming up with a process and refining that process, whatever that is, whatever works best for you, I think is important for people to do that. If they want to be more competitive, they want to improve, they plan on trying their hardest at 3, 4, 5, 6 major tournaments throughout the year. You want to get something in place, like some kind of process or system to kind of get the most you can out of your time and effort being put into these major tournaments.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I won't take much time from you. Again, congratulations on the win. I hope you do really well in Los Angeles, and I really hope to see you in NAIC playing Raging Bolt.
If it's good enough, I would love to play it.
If it's good enough, you'll love to play. And well, thank you so much for giving me your time. I know it's your birthday. Happy birthday, man. And
appreciate it.
Yeah, so thank you so much for this short but really good interview with me.
Of course, no problem. Thanks for having me.